I'm Pat Bradley. This is SpringShoe Tips and Cheats. Today's episode, Animating Without Drawing. So this style of animation is nothing new. It's been around forever, but it's a good option if drawing's not your thing, or if you just want to try something different.
Hey, zoom in right here, guys.
There's a lot of ways you can really push this medium, especially if you're a photographer. But it still requires the most important part of animation, which is timing. And the example I'm using today is from a project for the Field Museum called Human Flight, and we had access to a lot of archival footage and photographs. So the very first thing you do is get the rights to use the photographs if you don't own them.
Get the image rights.
And if you're using something from an image site, you can usually download a sample and try it out before committing to buying that photo. And that's what we did to produce the rough version of this video before everything was approved. Ooh, I just discovered this is the first scene for the prototype version of this, which I used George Bush's face for the parachuter. Fortunately, he didn't make the final cut. So this is a 2-second scene where the narrator says,
"From the ancient Greeks."
We cut out this guy from the background and separated his arms and head from the body. So we separated out the background from the far background. And you can see along the edges where any overlap was filled in so there wouldn't be any blank space. And then we've made the far background a different depth to make it more three-dimensional and add some interest. In the Harmony software, you can use deformers. I know a lot of different animation software does a similar thing, where instead of it looking extremely stiff, you have the option to bend things more. You get that kind of look, and then there's a little bit of a head turn. You can see it's really trying hard to fake the head turn. So again, everything's crude, but you get the idea. So another thing we did was add a rim light. You can see there a drop shadow, and color scaled the background a little bit just to make things pop a little bit more.
Trying. From the ancient Greeks to Leonardo.
Very quickly, the helicopter scene is just a stock photo of a helicopter. The propeller was removed, and I created a new propeller, which spins on a different axis in 3D space. Added some motion blur to that and some clouds for the background.
Spin down like a seed.
So this is the Batman scene. So we've got legs, we've got a body, a wing, and a wing. These have the deformers on them. So I've drawn a shadow down here just to try to add a little bit of realism. And again, we've got a foreground and a background because there is a camera move in here. So as it backs up, there's a little bit of depth in there. No one probably notices it. A lot of this scene is about timing. And we're doing a classic exaggerated cartoon timing here, where we have an extreme ease in. Here's a handy chart to show you start really slow, and the very last frame there is an extreme movement to make you really feel that impact. Kaboom.
Always wanted to fly like the birds.
Here's a scene from Why Mammoths Shrank.
Other proboscideans, such as pygmy elephants in the Mediterranean islands, pygmy stegodons in Indonesia, and pygmy Asian elephants in Borneo today, all shrank when isolated on islands.
The reason I show that scene is because it's so simple. There's no moving limbs. The photographs aren't even cut out from the background. But I still get a laugh every time I see it, just because of the timing, and the sound design really helps. This segment brought to you by Cleaver Studios. Custom soundtracks and original music. Contact Chris at cleaverstudios.com. Contrasting with that last scene is this super creepy demonstration that I made. Here's how it's broken down. You've got the original photo here. I removed myself from the background and sort of filled in the gaps between by smearing. I separated the body from the head, and then separated the jaw from the head and added some darkness behind it so that I could talk. The glasses are on a separate layer, which wasn't terribly useful. And then to make it extra creepy, the eyes behind the face had to be done like that. They're almost completely redrawn. And that's all pretty standard stuff, but the thing that makes it extra creepy is I added this mesh deformer here to just try to give some expression to the eyebrows, but it ends up making it just a little bit too realistic, and it ends up more creepy than funny, in my opinion. Keep it simple. And now back to Human Flight. In this third scene, we've got birds and we've got a flapping plane. The birds are actually just photographs of two positions, and then they're just offset from each other. The plane is the same thing as all the other ones we've got. These engines are on their own layer. The wings are being deformed. See the deformer there. I had to create a separate drawing here since I didn't have a photograph of the top of the wing, so I kind of made it up here. It goes from the photograph to this drawing and then back. The body of the plane also has a deformer that's doing this kind of motion.
And flap like a... Wait, why don't planes flap their wings? Well, it's not for lack of trying.
I lied when I called this Animating Without Drawing, because there is this scene that has the Da Vinci's flying machine, and unfortunately there are no photographs of the flying machine, so I drew that out. But the same thing applies. There's no actual frame-by-frame drawing. It's just parts cut out. Then we have Da Vinci himself. He's broken up into his body. His head is doing a very slight movement, and obviously the eyes and the hat for some reason is on a different layer. Sometimes you just cut apart stuff just in case you need to move it, and that didn't really move that much. I guess it squishes a tiny bit. So.
To Leonardo da Vinci, humans have always
This
wanted...
bird is a mesh of a few different photographs. The body is of a perched bird, and then we have the two wings from a bird in flight. And then we've taken the legs and cut them apart so that it can leap off this guy's head.
Lightweight birds can lift off by flapping from a standstill. But people and machines aren't light.
Same situation here where we have some deformers here that are faking out the motion. And we've combined a lot of different photographs for the background. We've got a beach scene, some sort of random foliage, and then I'm sure one from a photograph of mine that's in a completely different environment. But it's zoomed in enough that you probably wouldn't notice. Now this one was probably the most difficult just because we needed to show an albatross running to take off, because we're talking about it being such a big bird that it needed a running start. The photograph shows this one foot sticking out, and I had to take that and manipulate it into a few different foot positions that were needed for the run cycle. And this shows what it would be like to have pancakes for feet. The wings are able to move. The head is kind of bobbing back and forth, offsetting the run position. We took a background of an airplane field, threw it in there, and then just added a far background and a drop shadow. Obviously, this style of animation is not for every project. I think because of its limitations, it's inherently crude and goofy. But that can be a real asset if you're looking for just some basic humor. I always seem to be making art in a vacuum here in my studio, so if you have any examples of the style of animation that you can share, I would love to see them, because I'm always trying to learn as well. Also, if you find any value in this, please like and subscribe and ask me any questions you can.